one thing we do need to be clear about, and that is that nurturing our children's self-esteem is absolutely fundamental for our children to be very strong and powerful as they go through life. The question is, how do we bring that out? And what we're going to see is not all forms of positive feedback are actually positive. And not all forms of negative feedback are negative. In fact, when we discipline and reprimand a child properly, which we'll understand by the end of tonight, then it's actually constructive to their self-esteem. When we praise our children negatively in the wrong fashion, then it actually is destructive to their self-esteem. So it can work in the exact reverse. The thing that we think is building their self-esteem is destroying it. The thing that we think is destroying it can possibly actually be building it. And so we need to know how to use both. Because our children's self-esteem is really not determined by whether we are praising them or reprimanding them. It's actually determined by how we're praising them and how we're reprimanding them. That's the key. How to praise and how to reprimand. So that's what we want to walk out with at the end of the night. What is the proper way to praise? What is the proper way to reprimand? Because we will see that both are vitally important in raising children properly. So, how to phrase the praise? You see that? What is the proper way to praise? Let's go to learning exercise 1B on page 136. Okay? We're going to go to 1B. Analyze the following compliments and determine whether they are likely to have a positive or negative effect on the child's self-esteem. Okay? You're so smart. I'm very proud of you. Would you say that's positive for your child's self-esteem, negative or neutral? How many for positive, raise your hand? How many for negative, raise your hand? How many for neutral? Okay. You're an absolute angel, the best. Positive, raise your hand. Negative, raise your hand. Neutral, raise your hand. Okay. You did a great job. Look at how perfect the work is. Positive, raise your hand. Negative, raise your hand. Neutral. Okay. You worked really hard. That is wonderful. Positive. Negative. Neutral. Wow. That is the only one we had a unanimous agreement on. All the other ones, we were all over the place. But this one, everyone agreed was positive. That's a very good sign. Okay? Good job, good job. Well, it's not really about, whether we're doing a good job. It's just about learning what is, because the truth is, I'll speak for myself, as much as I know about parenting, I'm definitely not always parenting properly. Children know how to bring out the best of us. So, I'm blaming the children now. But, right. But somehow I manage not to always do all of the things I teach. But at least we try, right? And that's actually the point of working really hard. So, what is the proper way to praise? There's an interesting study that was done about praising children, which is very enlightening about how praise really works with children. Let's read text number 2. Jeff, can we start with you? An interesting study. Okay. How interesting is that? It's actually counterintuitive. So it's telling us, if you see on page 138, why would praising intelligence have a detrimental effect on children? Wouldn't it be great to tell our children, as probably all of us have done 100 times, and the classic parent today does, we always tell our children, you are so smart. Right? You're so smart. You're such a smart kid. And this study is showing us that when we tell our children, when we encourage how intelligent they are, it actually seems to backfire. Whereas when we don't tell our kids we're so smart, we say, wow, you're putting in a lot of effort. That's great. Right? That actually serves our children far better than telling them that they're smart. This study actually is very insightful in teaching us about how to praise our children. Because here's how it works. When we praise our children, and I bet you we all know this from our own experience. I know this from my experience as a kid, and still as, we all have a kid within us still. So when we're told repeatedly that we have a certain characteristic, like you're so smart, so then I need to protect that smartness because that becomes my identity. I hang on to that because you value me because I'm smart. because my parent always tells me I'm smart, so now I need to hold on to that, because if I lose that, I lose my parents, right? And so therefore, if you're going to give me a test that can actually threaten the possibility of how smart I am, I'm running. I'm not taking the test, right? However, if you always praise me for my effort, wow, that's great, you tried really hard, and I'm very impressed by that, then I take on every opportunity because I know I am in control. I just need to put in effort. The result is not the issue, it's the effort, it's the process. And so the children who are being praised for their effort will take on the challenges of another test and probably end up learning more because they'll take on more. Whereas the child who may in fact be smart, he may be very smart, but by being labeled as smart repeatedly, feels like the game here is to be smart. Let me not do anything that can threaten that game because I'm there already. Everyone's telling me I'm smart. Can you relate to that at all? Okay. So we all know that pretty well, it seems like. And this is very insightful on how we should be praising our children and where it's very, very common for us to go wrong in the way we praise our children. In other words, praising a natural talent is not a healthy praise for our children. Okay? It's important for us to make our children aware of their talents, but not to make their self-worth contingent upon their talents. Okay? Do you see what I'm saying? So let's look at this. So effort is something that they can always contribute. If they're smart, right? And that's something they need to know, because otherwise they will be underdeveloped. They won't use their smartness. They'll think they're not smart. They need to know that they're smart. But we can't continue, when we continuously praise them about their smartness, the child begins to believe that their self-worth is hinged upon that characteristic. If we have, let's say a kid is artistic, right? So we need to make sure that our child knows he's artistic, that he has that talent. And we need to encourage the child in using that talent, but not always telling the child, you're great because you are artistic. Okay? The child is great because they put an effort to develop that talent that they have. Because that's where the child is actually putting forth, demonstrating some personal effort. So if you praise a natural talent, the child is more likely to link talent with worth. This is, we can probably all relate to this. But this is something that if we as parents can give our children, it's invaluable. And that is the gift of children knowing that they are inherently worthy. They don't need to be anything to be worthy. And that is true. If we don't understand why that's true, we need to deal with that too. Okay? But that's true. So they're not worthy, and I don't love you because you're smart. Because if you weren't smart, I'd also love you. And I don't love you because you're a great basketball player, because I would love you even if you weren't a great basketball player. But God did give you some talents over there, and you should use those out in a good way. Number two, fear appearing untalented and avoid challenges. When we are always praising a natural talent, that can make the child fear appearing untalented, because now their value is contingent upon this talent, and they'll avoid challenges where they can be threatened. And this happens all the time. 3, feel inferior to more talented people. When we're brought up in a world of intelligence, which I don't know, that's sort of the world I was brought up in. And what I mean by that is where intelligence was one of the great values. And I think in America in general, that's a big value that we have. Then when there are people who are more intelligent than us, and there always will be people more intelligent than us, we feel inferior. And the truth is we're not inferior. We may not be as smart as them, but it doesn't make us more inferior to them. And lastly, that may lead us to putting down others because we think we are more worthwhile. Because I am smarter than someone else, I think I am more worthwhile than them, and therefore that can lead to me putting them down. Lastly, look down on those who are less talented. Okay, I guess that's sort of what I just said. Looking down on people who are less than us. We're good with that? We're clear with that? Okay. So what we're really getting at is giving our children authentic praise, and that is praise for where they are actually putting their best effort forth, not praise for certain gifts that they were blessed with. On the flip side, when we praise effort, there are a whole bunch of advantages to praising effort. Number one is it empowers the child to take things on and to do things. Because we're telling them it's all about the effort you put into it. It makes no difference what, I sort of mentioned this last week. It doesn't make, I'm not as concerned about the grade you get as much as the effort you're putting into studying and knowing the information. Links effort with worth. What makes you worthwhile is when you take everything that God has given you and you use it to the best of your ability. Whether that's going to bring you here or bring you here or bring you there is not the goal. The goal is to use your best effort. It motivates effort when we praise their effort. So praising effort produces children that are unafraid of failure, value and respect all people because they don't judge people by their talents, but by the effort they put forth. And that's it. Okay. And here's a very important point. Life is not, and this is the essential point we're getting at, and when we can give this to our children, they can literally go into most situations freely, without fear or concern of what it's going to say about them. And that is, life is not about the product, but the process. This is very, very important. We are actually product-oriented. Do you believe that? We are product-oriented? We are in a very product-oriented society. It's about how much money we're making. It's about how big my business is. It's about whatever end results there are in our lives. And we're always looking for that end result. There's always a means to an end. But actually the process is really always where the value is. And someone who's never satisfied with going through the process because they always want to see the result actually is in a very weak situation. And children who are raised this way, where they know that it's about the process, they'll go into any process. If they don't get that result, it doesn't faze them because it's not about the result to them, it's about the process and what they gain as they go through the process. When it's always about the result, as we probably all know, we're disappointed, we're frustrated. How come I did the same thing they did and I didn't get what they did? Which is all about end result. And if we're about results, that is what our value is contingent upon, and we feel like a failure because we didn't get the result.